This is a Momentum Media production.
It's over $20 million in assets you've got.
If my net worth was 10 million or 100 million, I don't think I would respect myself more. There was a video that was taken of me in Double Bay. I was driving my Lambo and I had my leg kicked up on the seat and people were saying that I was a drug dealer and all this stupid stuff. I didn't have my first full-time job until I was 25. There was an opportunity to exploit arbitrage. So I would buy a phone for 300 on Marketplace and then sell it for 400 or 450. I'm extremely good at what I do. Quite frankly, any of you try to compete with me, I would destroy all of you. I don't have to worry about data and all that kind of stuff. That's your job. That's what I pay you guys for. I trust that it all works because my portfolio goes up.
When you often hear about large property portfolios, the conversation is on how great we did as a buyer's agency or how great we were as a team working together. But in today's conversation, this only represents this much of our chat. What we wanted to do differently was actually go into the mind of someone who's such a successful investor. Go back into their journey where it all started, help them unpack their perspective on thinking, relationships, building a team around themselves, and getting ahead with wealth building. And of course, what all that wealth is for. So in today's episode, we have one of InvestorKit's most successful clients. Michael Thomas joins us with an over $20 million portfolio built across residential and commercial investments, something we've built closely together and now seeing his portfolio flourish more than ever before. Now, we're taking Michael's example here, not just to say, hey, everyone can build a $20 million portfolio, where in fact, yes, many people can, but it's more to unpack the thinking, the workings, the relationship, how we as a team come together, but also how Michael's gotten himself ahead through his journey and unpacking it all. So let's get into this episode where you're going to hear more on Michael's journey and what it takes, and also what he's achieved as a $20 million property investor.
Nerd alert! Property Nerds, the home for data-driven property investors, where we uncover Australia's hot and cold markets, latest headlines and trends.
Hey Michael, thanks for coming on the show.
Pleasure. Good to be here.
Mate, I spoke about you in the introduction and your portfolio is something that's been phenomenal, not just, at your age, but just in general, in terms of what Australians are capable of and being able to build in terms of wealth. But I want to go back to before where it all started, and I want to understand more about Michael as a teenager, Michael in his early working years, and just want to bring that to life because the journey isn't just the end outcome, it's also the journey itself that we want to, talk about. And so could you share more about Michael in his teenage years, his early working years to get to all these outcomes and how that's happened?
Yeah, so up front, it can be a bit gloomy. You know my backstory largely, but for anyone that's listening. So I was riddled with pretty bad mental health throughout most of, if not all of my teen years. And so because of that, I struggled to have any kind of direction with really anything that I wanted to do. I would even go as far to say that I didn't really want to do anything. It was made, I think, worse by the fact that I was quite capable from a schooling perspective. And so I don't know that much attention was given to me because from other people's perspective, I was doing relatively well. I performed good with all of my grades, etc. And on a surface level, I would say that I lived like a very typical life. I had reasonably stable family, good social circle, good physical health, upper middle class like family. And so I would say because of that, it made it quite difficult for anyone to think that anything might have been wrong. But absolutely there was a lot that was wrong. I struggled, as I said, quite substantially with mental health, serious depression, anxiety. And throughout the period, I didn't actually even know what it was. It wasn't until I was doing a psychology subject at university where the tutor was listing all the symptoms for anxiety and depression that I realized that that's what I had. She listed everything, and one by one, I met all of that criteria. Sometime later, I reached out to my sister by note, and she encouraged me to see a doctor. That doctor told me the unfortunate news that I was the best scoring, but worst scoring person that she'd ever seen. So it wasn't exactly something to celebrate, but I at least then knew that there was something wrong, and I thought I could maybe address it. And I think from there is maybe when things started to see some sense of direction. But prior to that, heavily involved in video games and not really sure what it is that I wanted to do. I was quite nihilistic. I didn't think that being able to make money was something that I would ever be able to do. I thought that most people had jobs that they didn't enjoy, and none of that really made sense to me or seemed appealing. I didn't want to have a job that I didn't like and spend 40 hours a week doing something that I didn't like. And I think that even further made my interest in my future diminish. Because why would I invest my time into, well, two reasons. Why would I invest my time into a life that I didn't think I'd be alive for, number one, but also a life that I would enjoy. And so all of that was, I guess, a storm for quite a difficult life for me earlier on.
Yeah. Now, when this life has turned into, the more traditional things that we often talk about, which is getting into full-time work or, getting started in business, when was it that work kicked off for you as a part of obviously creating this journey or pathway that you've been on now? When did you kick off?
So I don't remember the first job that I had. I might have been 18 or 19, but it was only part-time.
Okay.
I didn't have my first full-time job until I was 25. And between 18 and 25, effectively all I was doing was the minimal amount that I could do to allow my dad to leave me alone.
It's such an interesting way to look at it, eh?
Yeah. And so that was random odd jobs, 1 or 2 days a week. Then quite often I would quit that job. There'd be several months until my dad would encourage me to do something else. Then I'd maybe do a course. So I studied for personal training. I studied for massage. I think there might have been one other thing in there as well. But all of these random things, basically just trying to justify my existence so that my parents would just let me be.
Well, I mean, a lot of people start ticking off into that early to mid-20s from university to, going and starting their first job. Obviously, hanging around until you're 25 to actually kick off that first job, or in your case, getting your hands into many different things isn't traditional.
No.
What do you think was the trigger to make you go down this path to begin with?
The path of actually finding a job?
Yeah.
Well, it all happened by complete luck. It wasn't intentional. In between a massage course, so I qualified myself with Cert 3 massage, and for whatever reason there was a 6-month gap between Cert 3 and Cert 4, and so during this time I needed to figure out something that I could tell my dad that I was doing so that he would leave me alone and I could play League of Legends. And
Jack's favorite, by the way.
Yeah, I was a beast.
I still play.
Yeah, I was really good, like in the top 0.001% or something. Anyway, so I don't know how I stumbled across this, but I realized that there was an opportunity to exploit arbitrage with mobile phones. So I noticed that you could, it seemed as if phones were listed for less on Marketplace than what they were on Gumtree. I think that was the order. Right. And so I would buy a phone for $300 on Marketplace and then sell it for $400 or $450 on Gumtree. And eventually, after doing this a few times successfully, I thought, well, if I can do this with an item that's more expensive, then I could potentially see more profit, right? And so I had a little bit of money saved up, and I reached out to a friend in the motor industry. And I said, look, with my money and your knowledge, maybe we might be able to buy and sell some cars. And he said, sure, we'll give it a go. And on the way back from looking at a car one day, he said, have you ever considered joining the motor industry? And I remember this moment vividly, because my reflex response was no, a strong no. I'm not interested in it, didn't care for cars. I'm not a salesperson, I'm introverted. And none of it appealed to me. But before answering, I took a few moments to think about it, and I thought, well, worst case scenario, if I don't like it, I'll just quit. And so I said, okay, let's give it a go. I think it was the next day or the day after I went in for an interview. I got the job on the spot, and I think I started either that day or the following day. And that changed the entire trajectory of my life.
Well, you obviously have carried this, buy and sell skill set through multiple areas, right? It's been from the mobile phones to then cars. And from an outside view, it just felt like just kept stacking on wins, like from one industry, moving to the other. But then there's a point where people get lots of wins in their career and they can almost be coasting.
Yep.
But for you, there was a point where you moved from those wins in those career to entrepreneurship and doing that, but at your own business and that capacity there. What was the thing that switched for you to go, yeah, I'm winning, but at the same time, it's not exactly what you woke up and said this was your dream passion or what you wanted to do. And then you've shifted on from working to running your own business.
So I ended up moving due to some complications with work. I won't go into them because I still have a good relationship with the place that I worked at, and it was nothing personal. It just didn't end up working out. I'll be forward with numbers. I think the year that I left, I made like 900 grand or thereabouts. And so no one expected me to leave. But I wasn't willing to prostitute my values and, I guess, self-respect in order for a pay packet.
Yeah.
So I thought that when I left, I might only make 100 grand a year, and I was happy to make that sacrifice. I was very fortunate that wasn't the case, and I ended up doing much better than that. But realistically, it was just a matter of a couple of unfortunate events that forced me, because I'm a proud person, to leave. I was very, very, very lucky that my transition was largely seamless, and that's because my previous employer was very, very giving and liberal with the freedom that I had at that workplace. So I had almost unlimited money to spend and almost complete freedom to build a business within that space. The questions weren't asked. I could hire people, fire people, take on costs to the business. I was effectively able to build a business within a business while I worked there. And because of that, it made a very, very easy transition when I did start my business. So it wasn't something that should really be congratulated that much, because from my perspective, I didn't really inherit or I wasn't adopting a huge amount of risk. It's not like I was moving into the unknown. It was a space that I was very familiar with.
Yeah. So it was almost like a transition rather than a whole new setup and a whole new journey. I
was doing the same thing, largely speaking. There were some minor differences, but I was doing largely the same thing, but now in a different structure. Instead of being on PAYG, I was now doing it in a business construct.
Like, I appreciate one thing that you've done really well there is just bringing up also transparency into the mix here. And just in today's conversation about earnings and things like that, we often meet many people with huge desires to build substantial portfolios.
Yeah.
And one thing people don't recognize is that yes, you can, with the right structure and lending and team around you, build a better portfolio than what you could without that. But there's a lot of internal work as well that goes into crafting a portfolio or large base of wealth. And that is the things with your finance abilities, your income earning, your savings abilities, your, relationship with money and the way you use it or the way you treat it or respect or disrespect it, right? There's all these different thoughts. And so I just feel like sharing that's important for everyone, because in this journey of building wealth, comparison is also a thief of joy. And if you're not in the same positions, but you're expecting the same results, or you're thinking, why do they have it and why I don't? These can lead to many other thoughts. Has that ever, been a thought in your mind where you've been seeing wealth build really quickly for yourself, but you've also seen others? Like, there's always a bigger dog than myself out there. There's always a bigger dog than someone else out there who's doing their thing, right? But I mean, do you feel like that traps you at all on your journey or not really?
No, because I didn't think I'd be alive. Like, this is all like cream to me. Like, this is all bonus. So I didn't think I'd be alive. And so anything from here is a win from my perspective. But not just that, I'm very, very fortunate to have the dad that I have, and he grew up extremely poor. And he's also traveled the world, and he allowed me to travel as I was growing up. I've seen people with nothing. And in fact, when I was like 12 or 13, it's quite morbid, but I was in Thailand a year or two after the tsunami, and I remember seeing literally a torso and a head with a sign against their chest. And I think about that often, and it's like, I could get trapped into thinking that another Lamborghini, another Ferrari, whatever, is going to make my life better. But I just simply know that's not the case. I've seen people without much living a happier, more fulfilling life than people with so much. You know, having a $20 million house does not make you immune from going through divorce. So I think, or even bringing your children up and giving them to the best private schools does not make them respect you. So there's so many things that I think society has wrong, and they try to compensate for a lack of effort by just buying things. I think that fortunately, because of my upbringing and the things that I've seen and paying attention to the people around me and the people on TV, I have always understood that more stuff isn't necessarily conducive to a better way of life. I'll just a side story. I remember when I bought my first Lambo, I was talking to one of my best friends, Louis, who you all know. And I said to him, after a week, I'm not going to care. And sure enough, after a week, I just, it's not that I didn't care. I'll always have these cars. But that elation that you feel when you first purchase something like that, it disappears. And so that taught me, or rather cemented the fact that more stuff doesn't necessarily result in a better quality of life. And I'm a big believer that the quality of your life is really just a reflection of the quality of your emotions, right? So if you have nothing but your emotions are strong, then the experience that you have in life will be solid. And things don't necessarily improve or control the emotions that you have. So I think these are, I've gone in a few different directions here, but I've always been a deep thinker. I've always tried to pay attention to the people around me, recognize the mistakes that other people make so I don't have to make them myself. And then I test little things. Like right now I've got a Lambo and a Ferrari. And when I had the Lambo, I'm like, I'm going to buy this Ferrari, and I can guarantee that when I add it into my life, nothing will happen. And I did it, and it didn't. So I'm always testing little ideas that I have just to give myself, I guess, the confidence that I know what I'm doing, or I think that I know what I'm doing. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah.
So Michael, when you got into flipping phones and flipping cars, it didn't sound like it was something you were passionate about. You kind of just fell into it. So what advice would you give to someone who's kind of thinking about doing something they're passionate about before they actually take action?
It really depends on what your motive is, right? So if you want to live a life that's completely full of passion and drive, then perhaps it is something that you should do. Personally, I was prepared to forego and leave behind passion for the pursuit of financial freedom. And what I ended up finding, funnily enough, was that I became passionate about being good at the thing that I was doing. I think quite often, I don't know if this is true for everyone, but for most people, if you're good at something, you're competent at something, and you're winning, it's enjoyable. And what I eventually found is that as I became better, I found that it was more fulfilling and enjoyable. And then that encouraged me to do it more and more and more. I don't think that it's necessarily wrong to try to marry up something that you're initially passionate about and that will also be financially advantageous. But I think quite often people confuse something that they're passionate about with, actually no, what I would say is, I think sometimes people think that because they're passionate about something, they'll enjoy doing it. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. And I'll give an example of that. I've been training in the gym for about 15 years now, right? And earlier on, one of those odd jobs that I did was I worked in the gym. You would think that for someone that's never taken a week off, that working in a gym would be an environment that I would enjoy. Well, that's wrong. I hated it.
Yeah.
And it's because what are you doing in that environment? So I'm quite introverted. I don't particularly like being a people person and small talk. But what do personal trainers do? That's pretty much what they're doing all the time. They're introducing themselves to people. Hey, how are you? How's your training going? Blah, blah, blah. And so that's what I had to do. I hated it. Not only that, it was combined with admin tasks and other things that I didn't really have a calling for. Conversely, the motor industry, although I didn't particularly care about cars when I joined, it allowed me to express parts of my personality that I do have a tendency to find more fulfilling. And I am a competitive person, and sales allowed me that space to be competitive in the way that an area that I'm more passionate in, like the gym space, didn't. So I think it's important maybe to have some self-awareness around what parts of your personality you find would be expressed in the position that you're looking at, rather than the overarching theme. Because not always is it the theme or the industry that allows you to enjoy the work that you do. It's the actual specific work that you're doing, as well as the people that you're doing it with.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I mean, mate, I know this is a bit off topic, but it made me think back to the days of playing sports. And, when I found myself wired in a slightly different way. It was like when I played cricket and I was bowling a lot, and I felt like, okay, I'm getting good at this. I hated cricket to begin with, but until I got good at it, that's when I started liking cricket.
Yeah, of course.
And so the part where I share similarities on is that if I'd stuck to cricket and then maybe just stopped at the point of not getting any good at it, I would have hated it, because I hated it all at the start. I felt like I was forced into it. But then when I started bowling and I started, having some good momentum, I was like, I'm kind of into this. Like, this is a pretty cool sport.
Yeah.
And then funnily enough, it actually can also do the opposite to you as well, because it is a team game. It's not so much in your own control of your efforts and things. When you do have days where you're not as good, or your team isn't as good, and you lose a few, I started losing a fair bit. And so, partially maybe because of me as well. My bowling wasn't as good as I thought. But I mean, as soon as I started losing a fair bit, I didn't enjoy it as much. And sometimes it can be so like, that made me realize that I wasn't passionate about it. Yes. Because I was so attached to the win or loss. And the basketball was the opposite. I was attached to it, but I wasn't caring about the win or loss.
Sorry to interrupt, but I just think this is interesting. There's a study, and I'll completely butcher it, but basically they have rats wrestle each other. And they found that if one rat didn't win a percentage of the time, was something like at least 30% of the time, it will stop playing. And I think this is true for humans as well. If you don't at least win sometimes, you would just lose complete interest. So this is why I think it's so important to try and compete in a field that you do have competency in. Yeah. Because if you're turning up to work every day and just getting kicked to the ground, you won't be able to do it forever. It does have a time limit on it, in my opinion.
Oh man, such a good point. Actually, I think that's the best way to summarize it. It's like, if you're not going to stack up some wins or some micro parts to the journey where it's like, oh, this is great, this felt good. Whether it's a hormonal dopamine release or something, it could be, right? So hence why Jack, will go wrestle guys in the car park and do jiu-jitsu with them first before he gets into the class, right, Jackie? So he'll come to class or get up and just go, all right, just beat up 4 people along the way.
Find out who's on the 7-day trial and just go.
Yeah. Awesome. We'll go over to you, Adrian.
Michael, a lot of the time what we see with, a lot of business owners, as you would probably see as well, Arj, is, they really focus solely just on the business, and they don't really think about property as that tool to get them to, what you described earlier as, that financial freedom or what you're really seeking. What was that sort of trigger moment for you where you started thinking about property?
So I think earlier on, I knew that investing, or at least I was told that investing was necessary to multiply and compound your money. I just wasn't sure exactly how it was that I was going to invest my money. And the two obvious choices were stocks or property. And what I did was, on my lengthy car trips to work, I would listen to podcasts from both fields. So property podcasts actually where I stumbled across Arjun, and stock related equities podcasts. And I, over time, just naturally grew a inclination towards property over stocks. I think there are some pretty obvious advantages. Leverage. I think when you own property, it feels as if it's a mini business that you have some influence over, rather than a company that you have no control over, despite having hundreds of people that you won't know. So there are a couple of reasons, but eventually I just compared the two and I thought, no, property is just what I'm more interested in. So I chose to go down that route. And I also kind of pessimistically believe that the world is so corrupt and the financial systems are kind of a Ponzi scheme in a sense. And when you look at the billions and billions of dollars that are wrapped up in property and these mega wealthy people and corporations that are invested in property that will always look after their own self-interest, I thought that would actually be an enticing place to play. Because in my opinion, if you have all of these extremely influential people that play in the property space, they will do as much as they can to ensure stability and growth moves to those areas. So I thought, yep, I'm going to jump on that ship. If I can't beat the game or change the rules, I might as well just play the game as best as I can. And that led me to wanting to work with a buyer's agent. The reasoning for that's quite simple. I'm extremely good at what I do. And if, quite frankly, any of you tried to compete with me, I would destroy all of you.
Yeah, we're stuffed. Hands down. I agree.
But conversely, if I tried to compete with any of you in your respective fields, I would fail miserably. And I understand that. If my toilet is broken, I find a plumber that I trust, I call them over, I ask them to fix it. And when they offer me the solution, I'm not going to try and contest them and say, well, I found this toilet that I think we should use. I will just, if I trust them, I'll give them full authority to make that decision on my behalf. And so once I found someone that I trusted, which is you guys, it made my life much easier. I wanted to multiply my wealth and I didn't want to be anchored to my business in order to do that. Particularly because my business relies on me to be active within the business to make money. It's not some cash flow generating machine that's just parked in the back and just printing. So for me personally, it made a lot of sense. And I didn't want to put in the decades worth of collective experience that you guys have in order to try and learn and do it myself. To me, it made sense to focus entirely on my business so I can continue to make money and then partner with someone that can then use that money to help it compound over time.
Yeah, awesome. Sounds like from what you said, your initial goal was very much around a bit of a hedge to your business so they wouldn't sort of rely on you as much. Was that always the initial goal? How has that kind of changed or evolved over the years?
Yeah, so it's changed a lot, really. Sometimes I come up with some weird ideas and like at first, and I could have this wrong, but I'm pretty sure at first it was like, I want to be able to own a house outright so that if I just rage quit life, I've got a house. Like, or if something happens to my dad and he needs a place to live or a friend, I can put him in that house. There's just the safety that comes with being able to have a place that you can live in and you don't have to worry about paying rent or anything like that. So I had a property that the first property that I bought was like 306 grand in Loganholme some years back. I bought that. Once I got to the point where I could afford to buy that outright if I needed to, I then moved on to wanting to have multiple properties, like 3 to 5, something like this. And the idea behind that was that I think I'd heard somewhere on a podcast that would be roughly an amount that would allow someone to retire off the passive income with a moderate expectation, like 100 to 150 grand per year once that debt was retired. That then moved to 10 because why not? 10's a good number. Like, let's have 10 properties. And then along that journey, I started to be a little bit more strategic with like what it was that I was actually trying to create. And that was passive income, but more so a specific amount that would allow me to maintain the life that I was now used to. And hopefully, in the case that I ever wanted to retire or shift, I would be able to do so without any concerns for the amount of money that was coming in. And that led into a little bit of a pivot towards commercial property.
Now, Michael, with the portfolio that you've built and you've explained that journey of the professional on the side in terms of like how they can help you versus your skill sets and their skill sets. But I want to go to now this large pool of assets. It's over $20 million in assets you've got. You've got a business doing multiple 8 figures in revenue. This is a point where people go through it and go, what's enough? What's not enough? How did you balance risk taking, the never enough mindset, and ultimately your goals and where you wanted to get to?
Yeah. So I think you just need to be conscious about what it is that you're doing and have self-awareness around what it is that you're doing, and not just being a zombie and just doing more because that's what everyone else is doing. Like, reflecting or referencing back to what I was saying before, I completely understand that having a $20 million property does not make you immune from divorce, or your kids, it doesn't guarantee that your kids will respect you, the things that I know will be important to me in the future. And so to continue to take on more risk and more debt for money that I don't need, logically makes no sense. So I've made a conscious decision not to pursue that. Of course, more is great. Like, if I tripped over 100 million, I would pick it up. But I'm not going to pursue that and risk what it is that I've worked so hard to get in order to do so, in order to try and achieve that $100 million amount or $1 billion amount. I think it's just very important to like be clear about what the actual goal of all of it is. I think too many people probably don't pay enough attention to what it is that they're trying to do, or their goals that they haven't properly thought about. I was listening to a YouTube video last night on my way to Woolworths, and this guy was like, I want to be a billionaire. And they're like, why? And he didn't even know. It was just because it's something cool to say. There's another guy that I was listening to once, and he's like, I need 250 grand a month to live. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what? 250 grand a month US? Like, why would you ever need that amount of money? Like, fair enough if you, again, trip over it, you become really successful, and that's just what happens. But if that's someone's goal, I just don't understand, like, logically what would ever make them think that that's what they need.
Yeah, like so specific as well, to need to live on.
Yeah, like I think they've just made it up.
Yeah.
So I've just been quite calculated about what it is that I think that I need, and there's been some adjustments because I've moved areas. Now I'm in a more expensive area, so that's had to climb a little bit. But basically, where I am, I'm happy with, and I recognize that my net worth isn't going to be what I respect myself for. If my net worth was 10 million or 100 million, I don't think I would respect myself more. I think what's probably more important to me is to be a net positive on the people's lives that are important to me and that I interact with. That's kind of like my mission moving forward, because I think for the longest time that probably wasn't the case. I think that growing up from 13 to probably 25 and maybe a little bit later on, I wasn't that net positive impact on the people around me. And so that's very important to me. That's more important to me than, dying and saying I'm worth 150 million instead of 10 million. Like, it's both plenty of money. Who cares? That's just my view.
Yeah. Now, Michael, on our journey of working together, there's been many things that we've talked through in our conversations, whether it be data, strategy, finance. Has there been anything in that conversation where you've been like, this has been such a big X factor for me, or it's shifted your perspective in our time together of working together?
So, as you know, like, I'm not the best person to ask this question to, only because I just devoid myself of all responsibility. As you know, I say to you guys, like, tell me where to send the money, where to sign. Like, I don't want to know about anything else. I will say though that I think it might have been and you probably don't remember this, but maybe the first property that we were doing together. And I thought in my brilliance that I had found a property that was as good. And so I said, hey, Arj, I was just curious about this property. And in real time, you said, oh, are you talking about this property with this? I said, yeah. You went at your computer. You just had already done all the research. I said, yeah. And you said, yeah, it fails due diligence because X, Y, and Z reasons. I was like, shit, okay. This is the guy I want to work with. And from then on, I just had complete faith because, again, like, I know how good I am at what I do because I give it my absolute everything, and I could tell that you do the same with your work. And over time, I've learned that your customer experience and your reputation, like you specifically, as well as the brand as a whole, is so incredibly important to you that you will do everything that you need to protect that. And one of those things is making sure that the customer gets the results that they want. So I don't have to worry about data and all that kind of stuff. Not anymore anyway. That's your job. That's what I pay you guys for.
Yeah.
I trust that it all works because my portfolio goes up. So there's proof positive that that is the case. But to answer your question, I did try to challenge you earlier on, and I got made look like an idiot. And so from then on, I was just like, I'll let these guys do what they do best and just go along with the ride and see what happens. And it's all been good for me so far.
Well, I know one thing I'm definitely not challenging you on, and that's League of Legends. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Jack, I'll hand it to you.
You'd say you're financially free now, right?
I think so.
Yeah. So how's your time and energy shifted as a result of becoming financially free?
So I am able to do things like this. When I was deeply, deeply, deeply entrenched in my business, I would have like severe anxiety if I wasn't at my computer for more than a few minutes at a time, to the point where I couldn't drive down the road. Like I was completely committed to achieving the goals that were important to me, like based around finances. So now I'm less anxious. I'm able to do more things, but largely speaking, I still just work and train. Like I remember one of my friends said to me, he worked with me as well. He said, like, dude, you work so hard to like buy this Lambo. This is the first Lambo I bought. You work so hard to buy this Lambo, but then you work so hard you don't even drive it. And I'm like, yeah, but it's like my work is what I enjoy doing. Even though I'm not necessarily passionate about what it is that I'm doing, there are aspects of it that I enjoy. I enjoy leading. I only work with people that I like now. I'm the boss, so if I think someone's a dickhead, I would fire them, but I wouldn't hire them in the first place. And so I'm effectively like just in this sports team of my friends working towards a common goal. So it's enjoyable for me. And if I need to do something, I do it. Like I come here, no one tells me that I can't. I can work from Thailand and Bali, which I've done a lot of recently. I get to train twice a day. And yeah, if I ever want to do something, I can. So there is freedom, but it's almost like the illusion of freedom because you still have responsibilities that if you're a good person, you will commit to, like my team. Of course, I'm not like I could just say to my team, like, get lost, we're done, and go sit in the Bahamas and do whatever people do when they're in the Bahamas. But
Pigs, I think.
I don't know. Yeah. But I don't find that, I don't find that enjoyable, but I have a responsibility as a leader to make sure that these people are looked after, and that's what I'm going to do. So my life has changed to a degree, like in some nuances, but I still do the same things. I still train all the time. I still work a lot of the time, and I try to look after my health as much as I can.
And you mentioned you're trying to have more of a positive impact on people around you. So
Yeah.
how have you been more selective with the people that you surround yourself with? Because obviously you wouldn't have the same friends as you would in high school.
No. But that's not slights at them as people.
Yeah.
We are just in a very different direction. You know, it becomes difficult to talk with people that you once had a common interest in that now doesn't exist. So what I mean by that is if the common interest was school, which you both participated in, but you're now no longer at school, you've now lost that one thing that you're able to communicate with so often. And so what's happened with people in my life is that they've gone a different path, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. They have good families, good relationships. I'm single, no kids. So some people would say that they're winning and I'm losing. There's no right or wrong. This is what's working for me at the moment. But as a consequence of that, I do like to associate myself with people that are trying to achieve good things for themselves, that like to live happy and healthy lives. And not just being successful financially, but I think it's very important that people are just passionate. I'm someone that finds the energies, not to be too woo-woo, but the energies of people quite contagious. So positive people have a very noticeable improvement on my health and well-being. I feel better when I'm around more positive people that are getting after things. But similarly, the negative effect that I feel when I'm around people that are the opposite or cruel, mean, not interested in things that maybe they should be, that negative response is palpable as well. So because of that, I do have to be very careful, maybe more so than what other people are. Like perhaps I have a tendency to be more emotionally sensitive than other people, which might be why I've had issues in the past, and I have to be particular about the way that I conduct myself. But I've just become quite cutthroat with my standards. Like and it's not just them to me, it's me to them. Like I've cut people off where I don't think I'm being good to them. I'm holding them back. Like there's been relationships where I feel as if I'm not allowing them to experience the things that they need to be because there's been ties there and we've had to sever them. And it's not anything personal, and it doesn't mean that they're a bad person or I'm a bad person. It was just necessary. So I try to look at things, again, strategically and just make the decision that I think that makes the most sense for the people that are involved.
Michael, I think one thing that you and I have in terms of relationship beyond just the world of what we did on the investing front, just as friends, is that I can just you don't need to hear this from me, but I can just so vouch for the things that you've mentioned then as to representing who you are. And I can take it back to a specific moment. And I'm not sure if you remember this. I was in the car park. I was messaging you about the journey I'm about to jump on for my health. And whilst, we'd messaged each other regularly from time to time. And then also just about investing, buying, anything like that, or just general how you are. As soon as I'd committed to that, I almost feel like your level of respect for me or our friendship leveled up even more, because there was this combination of your energy and messages and your passion towards, supporting me on a goal that I wanted was really clear. And I could remember messaging. I feel like I'm speaking to a new person now. It's almost like there's this cut of a ribbon to go, we work together. Yeah. That's your profession. That's mine. Yeah. We, talk from time to time just to check in. You're part of my team, Arjun. But I felt like when I committed to a greater version of myself, it's almost like a bond was created to even just a greater level. And I felt like that was really clear. And I just wanted to say that just because I think what you've said isn't just what you've said, but it's also what you demonstrate when, people around you are bringing that energy or bringing the best of themselves or trying to be the best version of themselves. That's all trying. It took there for you to go, my respect for you is so much higher. Yes. Yeah. I try, look, I'm not perfect at all. But I try to be authentic. I joked to you guys before, I know you guys dress up, look smart and everything else. I got changed. I tried to do it. I literally got changed and got dressed like this because this is just how I am. Yeah. I just try to act the way that I would. And, it was a nice compliment. It wasn't intended. But the other day I was talking to a guy I used to work with, and he knew about how I've been going and the cars and everything else. And I joked around that there was a video that was taken of me in Double Bay. I was driving my Lambo and I had my leg kicked up on the seat, and people were saying that I was a drug dealer and all this stupid stuff. And I was telling him about it, and he goes, you know what? You've always done that part because you did that when you were working back at the old place of work. Yeah. And that made me feel good because it's I'm still acting the same way that I always have. I still I try to treat people the same way that I have in the past. So I think being authentic is extremely important, whatever that means to you. And that's also something that has allowed me to have my complete faith in you guys, is that I can tell that that's what you do on a daily basis. I mean it when I say, and I've referred so many people to you people, 100%. to InvestorKit, and I don't do that lightly, because when I make a referral, it's an extension of myself. Yeah. Because if you guys do something wrong by someone that I referred, I feel responsible. And the only reason I'm able to confidently do that is because I know that you guys are authentic and want to give your absolute best to the people that you work with. Yeah. Well, Michael, thank you so much for joining us, mate. And this has been a really, really special conversation. Now, I know you've been kind and generous today to share about your journey behind the scenes, your thinking, also just more on your portfolio, which I shouted out in the intro of today as well. We love digging into it all, but outside of what you do in your business, you from time to time also look to support and mentor people, give them some guidance around, how they could live the life that they want to their best and highest potential. Yep. When it comes to that, how can people reach out to you on that front? Because I know that's something you're extremely passionate about on that specific area.
Yeah, so I have been mentoring people lately. I've got a website called mentoredbymichael.com.au. Simple, but I kind of like it personally. I will add socials and stuff at a later date. In the past, I've always tried to stay off social, so it's something I'm going to have to train myself into using. But that's the website, so you can reach out to me there. And it just leads back to what I was saying before. Like, I do genuinely want to help people. And it's been actually at least a 14-year goal of mine. I remember being 18 years old and I walked past the couch living at my parents' place. And there was an episode of Dr. Phil. And there's a few moments in my life I vividly remember. And this is one of them as well. And I remember thinking, I wish I could help people the way that he's able to help people in his show. But I felt that I wasn't able to because I was so broken myself that it would be irresponsible for me to ever try to offer advice to someone that might need it. And I'm proud of myself that I've been able to maneuver through a lot of the darkness that I experienced. And if I can ever be light in the dark life of someone that might need it, then that would be an extremely rewarding thing for me to be involved with. So that's what I would like to do more of moving forward. And it's something that I will be pushing to make sure that does happen.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Michael.
Pleasure. Thank you.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.
Game over.